Welcome back to the 480 podcast. I'm Jacob Fredericks. In today's episode, we're going to find out, did the Cardinals offense finally figure out their woes in their 28-27 comeback win against the Dolphins, and a preview into next week's matchup against the Chicago Bears. All right, so going into this game against the Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa coming back, the Cardinals defense, we knew that was going to have a very tough challenge against Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane. Forget even Raheem Mostert and Jalen Wright in that Dolphins backfield. They have a lot of talent in Miami. And so you knew going into this game that the Cardinals defense was going to have a test. And I think they passed the test quite frankly. I've been very critical of this Cardinals defense at a lot of times, and it wasn't perfect. They're still not a top 5, top 10 defense in the NFL, but they still play with guts, and they're tackling. They're not missing too many tackles, and the corners are holding up the best they can. We held Tyreek Hill, one of the fastest, most speedy receivers in the National Football League, to 72 yards. Yes, you can tell these rookie corners, especially Thomas and Melton, struggled with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle's speed, but you held him to 72 yards. He was their leading receiver. If you can hold Tyreek Hill to 72 yards in any game, you're giving yourself a very good chance to win football games. And on the defensive line standpoint, they held Devon Achane to 97 yards. Now, granted, he had a pretty good game. He was able to get through some of the holes early, but by the time the second half rolled around, the Dolphins could not run the football on the Cardinals. And the front four is still not amazing. It's still not playing the best that we think they can play, but they're still playing very well, and they held Devon Achane to under 100 yards, which if you could have told me that going into this game, that he was going to get, honestly, even under 130 yards, because I expected him to have a very good game, then I would have taken that, and I would have said that the Cardinals are giving themselves a very good chance to win this game. Now, on some of the negative sides, on the defensive side, is still only one sack on the quarterback. They really didn't get to Tua a lot. But when they got to Tua, they did it in the right moments, especially in the fourth quarter when the Dolphins had about 3rd and 8, and they finally came on a blitz. I've been begging Nick Rallis and Jonathan Gannon, please go more blitzes. When we blitz the quarterback, there's more incompletions. The problem I think we had in the first half, and why the Dolphins were very good, was that Tua just had a lot of time to throw the ball, because right now our front four just quite frankly isn't talented enough to rush 4 and get to the quarterback. Now, the good news for the Cardinals is Darius Robinson has officially been activated as of yesterday, and he will be playing in this week's game against the Bears. But still, there needs to be more from this defensive front, and I think the way to do that is please blitz. Please, I'm begging you, just please blitz. And then finally, some defensive standouts. I think Budda Baker, once again, amazing performance. So all those media guys saying to trade him, please just be quiet for a little bit. Budda Baker is the best player on this Cardinals team. Just flat out. He's the best player on this Cardinals team. You cannot trade him. Give him the money he wants and keep him. And another standout guy, Jalen Thompson. Once again, he had 11 tackles. He was all over. And once again, he came on one of those safety blitzes and was probably the play of the game for this Cardinals defense to hold Miami to punt the ball, and was able to get the Cardinals the ball back, which led them to go down on their game-winning drive. And one last thing to touch on the defense. Honestly, this was just a football thing. It's good to see as a neutral fan, but not so good to see when you want your defense to get turnovers. 0 turnovers in the game for both teams. Really mistake-free football for most of the teams, with the exception of a few penalties. Very, very nice to see as just a football fan in general. No turnovers, mistake-free football, high offensive scoring game. Now, we're going to finally move on to the offense. And going into this game, as you saw in my last week's episode, the gloves were off for this offense. I was on record saying that Drew Petzing, if he didn't figure out this week, should have been fired and should absolutely be on the hot seat. And this week, he finally did enough to where at least I think he should keep his job for another couple weeks. He finally figured it out, I think. I think Now, I could be wrong. It'll be proven this week that this is they finally just figured it out. They finally cracked the code, and they're not going to go back to the same things they were doing. They finally got all of their weapons involved. Specifically, Trey McBride first. Trey McBride, 7 catches, 124 yards from a tight end. Also helped me in fantasy football. Thank you, Mr. McBride. But finally, getting your tight end. He is a top 3 tight end in the league when you just get him the football. And yet, in the weeks prior, we haven't got him the football. So finally getting him the football this week, just amount to a lot of success, especially on that third down throw. I do not like when Kyler Murray drops back and throws off his back foot, especially on those 3rd and shorts, but he was finally able to complete it because he's got a big target like Trey McBride. And then 7 different receivers caught a pass in this game. And one of them was a running back. But other than that, 6 different wide receivers and tight ends caught a pass in this game. But you still see big stats from Trey McBride. And you still finally see some big stats from Marvin Harrison Jr. 6 catches, 111 yards, a touchdown in which he, by the way, absolutely cooked Jalen Ramsey. That's the best thing that we saw from this game. It's not that just we got him involved, but that he was able to prove against one of the top cornerbacks in the National Football League that he can get open. And so for all the people saying, oh, he's a bust already, oh, he's a button, no, he's not a bust. We just had the offense had to be able to find ways to get him open and get him the ball. And when you let him get open, especially crossing routes, that's what I have noticed with Marvin Harrison Jr., is when he has crossing routes, he is able to beat these corners. Even if he ends up turning back upfield on like a go route or a reroute, that's when he can get open. It was when he's crossing the field. That is when he is at his best. So if Drew Petzing can get him consistently running more crossing routes and just be able to get him open and not always just be running go balls and comeback routes, we are going to be very successful because your best player gets the football. And it's once again proof that you can spread the ball around to all these different guys, but you can still get your best players open and get them the ball. And that's what I think this game just overall proved in this game. Another positive is that Kyler Murray was sacked 0 times. 0 sacks given up by this Cardinals O-line. Now, granted, some of those could have been sacks, but thankfully we have a quarterback who can run for his life. He's been doing it since he's been in Arizona. But another good, solid performance from this Cardinals O-line. And speaking of the O-line, again, they ran the ball. It wasn't great. It wasn't pretty. James Conner only had 20 rushes for, I think, 70 yards. But they kept at it. They kept running the ball. And when they got into big moments, they were able to pay it off. Especially not necessarily in the run game. There was a action play where Murray threw it to Marvin Harrison Jr. and he just lobbed the pass up. I was scared out of my mind watching that play. But Kyler Murray once again steps up in big moments. I am all in on Kyler Murray as the quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals, as all Cardinals fans really should be. Now, and then we're going to move on to the end of the game, where Jonathan Gannon's clock management in these last few games, honestly all season, has been almost perfect in these short and under 2-minute situations. He's been almost perfect. Even going back to the Bills game, the Cardinals had a chance to win that game, bearing a few mistakes on that drive. The clock management was absolutely phenomenal. Game against the Chargers, clock management, phenomenal. Game against the Niners, clock management, phenomenal. There's a common theme of how well we manage the clock late in games, and all leads to a Chad Ryland legacy performance. Once again, Chad Ryland, just build a statue next to State Farm Stadium. He has been amazing in Matt Prater's absence. Kicked a 57-yarder in the first half and kicks the game-winning field goal as time expires to get the Cardinals their first win against Miami in over 10 years. So that is an amazing performance, and thank you, Chad Ryland, again. I hope that even when Prater comes back, we keep Ryland on the roster as long as he wants to, because he is an amazing option as a kicker. And finally, your Arizona Cardinals are first in the NFC West. As I said going into last week, that had results gone our way this week, we could be first in the NFC West. So all the people writing off this team, writing them off for the playoff race, it is absolutely not over. This Cardinals team can absolutely clinch a playoff berth if they continue playing the way they're playing. And let's not forget, they are undefeated against divisional opponents this year. All right, so now we're going to move along to next week's matchup against the 4-3 Chicago Bears in Arizona. This is a big game for both teams. I was texting my friend who is a Bears fan, when we both agree that whoever wins this game sets themselves up to make the playoffs as either the last wildcard team or for the Cardinals can help them win the division. So this is a huge game for both teams, especially Chicago, who are going to come in playing very angry after that loss, that heartbreaking loss to the Washington Commanders on the Hail Mary last week. You know they're going to come in, and they're going to come in angry. And so what I think is that the Cardinals have to just be ready to start to go from the jump. And that's what I haven't liked in the last few weeks. The Cardinals have started very slow in the first quarter, and that's how they lost to the Packers. And that's how they could have gotten this game, against the Dolphins, could have gotten away from them. So I think the Cardinals have to be able to come out very quickly and from the jump and just hit the Bears right in the mouth. And I think for the Bears, I think Caleb Williams is getting better and better, especially with all those weapons. He has so many weapons, and this Cardinals secondary is going to have to hold up against Romo Dunze, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, who is hurt, so I do not know if he will play. But hopefully that this Cardinals secondary can continue to play the way they've been playing, because these two rookies, Starling Thomas and Max Melton, have been playing lights out for this team. And I think what the Cardinals really have to focus on for this Bears offense is DeAndre Swift. We know the Cardinals front four is still struggling. The good news is, as I said before, Darius Robinson is back, so hopefully this Cardinals D-line will get a boost from that. But DeAndre Swift has been playing some of his best football of his career, so the Cardinals really have to try and stop him. And on the Cardinals side, continue to do what they were doing on offense last week. They're playing one of the best defenses in the league in the Chicago Bears, so they're going to have to really mix it up on offense in order to get some of our best players the ball and get them open. And just on the Cardinals side of everything here, I still think the Cardinals need to be looking in the trade block for a defensive end. The Cardinals are a defensive end away from this defense being a defense that people can fear, that teams will fear, because they can get to the quarterback. Right now, just with the way that we pressure and the players we have, it's just not something that teams fear. So I think if the Cardinals are really serious about winning this year, and they should be, because this is a team that can compete for a playoff spot and can even maybe compete for an NFC championship, you have to hit the trade block now, sooner than later. The trade deadline is coming up. So please, Monty, look in the trade block for a defensive end. Thanks for listening to the 480 podcast. I'm Jacob Fredericks, and I'll see you guys next week.